So we'll just give it some time for everyone to join. Welcome to the stream. I see there's one person in here so far. So good morning to you, or good afternoon, wherever you're from. All right, so we got one person in the stream so far. We'll give it a little bit of time here. Looking forward to taking your questions and just, having a good conversation. Kanishka Nimesh. Hey, Mike. Hey, Kanishka. Thanks for joining today. I don't recognize the name, but if you're new here, thank you so much for joining the stream. This is the first one of the new year, so in these streams, usually just a great opportunity to do some questions and answers. If you have any questions at all about Fiverr or making money on Fiverr or making money online or learning the skills that you can sell on Fiverr, put them in the live chat. I usually run these for about an hour, and I'll do my best to answer all the questions that we get in here. So thank you all for joining the stream so far. Really looking forward to chatting. Oh, and we got Ayub Booza 2001. He says, hi, Mike. Hey, Ayub. Thanks for joining the stream. I think this is your first time as well. So, what we do in these streams is, you're free to ask any questions that you have, and I'll do my best to answer them. So whether they're Fiverr related, how to improve on Fiverr, things you can do to tweak a gig, or situations you're having with buyers. This stream is here to be kind of an advice platform to answer any questions you have about ways that you can make more money on Fiverr. So thanks for joining. It looks like we're up to just 3 people so far, so probably take a couple more minutes before everyone starts piling in, hopefully. So any questions so far for anyone who's joined? Are you all selling on Fiverr already? If so, what are you selling? How has your experience been so far? Let's get the conversation started. Let's take a quick look here. Hey everyone, thanks for joining. As always, if you have any questions here on the stream, leave them in the live chat. And I'll answer them. If you have questions about selling on Fiverr, how to make money on Fiverr, ways that you can make more money on Fiverr, or situations you've run into with your buyers, this is the place to ask those questions, and I'm happy to help any way that I can. For those of you that are brand new here, if you're just getting started on Fiverr and you're looking for ways to sell better, along with these live streams, I also do free Fiverr reviews where I'll actually put your gigs and your Fiverr profiles on this channel and run through them in the form of a review. So if that's something that you guys would be interested in, make sure you check out that playlist and submit your profiles. So Abid Nasser says, hey Mike, hey Abid, I know I've seen you join a couple of the other streams. Welcome back. How's everything been going on Fiverr? I know you had a bunch of questions last time around. Is everything going well? Any questions this time around? Let me know in the chat. All right, so Kanishka says, what are the tips to increase the impressions of my gig? So Kanishka, that's a good question. Gig impressions are pretty key to making money on Fiverr. Typically, I find that impressions are the most important metric. If you have high impressions, clicks will trickle through and eventually people will buy, hopefully. So if you're having a hard time getting impressions, one of the best ways to increase the amount of impressions you're getting is to spend some time focusing on your gig's SEO. So SEO stands for search engine optimization. Basically, what it means is when you're creating your gig, right? You're creating your gig title, the subject line, or the body, all the text that makes up your gig description. Focus on including words in those descriptions that you think buyers would be searching for in Fiverr search. By doing this, you increase the chances that your gig will actually pop up when someone is searching for a particular term. So there's actually a ton of videos on this channel if you just scroll through the list of videos I've published, there's one, I think it's called How to Get 100,000 Impressions on Fiverr. And what it talks about is how to go about tweaking your gigs to increase the number of impressions they're getting. So that's a good starting point. Focus on your gigs SEO. Check out those videos that I've already put out about impressions, and it should give you a good step forward to helping your gigs, really start to gain some traction. So good question. All right, Hakeem says, "Hi Mike, thanks a lot for the content you provide for new Fiverr sellers. Thanks to your content, I've been able to reach level 1 seller, and I wanted to ask you 2 questions." Okay, well, first off, congrats on becoming level 1, and waiting to hear your questions in the chat here, so thank you. All right, so people are slowly starting to trickle in. One of the reasons I waited so long into the new year to do this live stream was I feel like people are still burnt out from the holiday season, so it might take some time. Kanishka says, "Thank you very much, Mike. My pleasure." Kanishka, out of curiosity, what are you selling? All right, Abed's level 1 as well. Awesome. All right, so Greg says, "What do you think about drop shipping?" So are you, maybe you could clarify the question. Are you asking, what do I think about Fiverr sellers who sell services on Fiverr targeting drop shippers? Or what do I think about drop shipping as a business? Could you clarify? Kanishka says flyers and magazine covers. Okay, yeah, perfect. So if you're doing something like designing flyers and magazine covers, graphic design, some of the keywords you might focus on would be things like flyer design, designing flyers, get a flyer designed, things like that. Those are the types of things people might search for. I mean, this is just off the top of my head, but start thinking about how you can put more of those types of phrases in your description to help your flyer and brochure design gig, lift to the top of Fiverr search. That should be pretty helpful. So Hakeem says, "What is a good place to share your gig on social media? And can you recommend any group that I or anyone could join if it's either a Facebook group or another site?" Okay, so Hakeem, good question. I think social media and marketing your gig off of Fiverr and being proactive about it is really good. However, you need to be very careful what expectation you're setting. So if you're looking for like gig share groups and things like that, that's a waste of your time, in my opinion. And the reason is that most of the people in those groups are just other Fiverr sellers like me and you, right? So what's the point of joining a group to market your gig if the only other people in that gig are Fiverr sellers like us? Like, we're not targeting Fiverr sellers for the most part. We're targeting, clients. So what I would say is, if you're looking to market on social media, the first step is maybe just post on your Facebook saying, generally tell my friends, I've started selling on Fiverr. Here's what I saw. If you know anybody, pass my information on. That's number 1. Second thing is, if you're going to start actually doing paid ads on social media, you could do that. But outside of that, I'm not a big... I think that joining groups on social media to promote your Fiverr gig is not as effective as some other things you could do. So I think last week or the week before, I published a video called How to Get More Orders on Fiverr from Referrals. So that talks about some things you can do through networking with other sellers, maybe through those Facebook groups, maybe through Reddit groups, maybe just by messaging other sellers. If you build a network of sellers through social media, with the expectation that, hey, if let's say you're a graphic designer and you start reaching out to a bunch of video editors, you say, hey, listen, you do video editing, I do graphic design. When you get a client that's asking for graphic design work, would it be okay that you direct them my way and send them to me for the order? And if I get someone who wants video editing, I'll send them to you. I think that's a great way of using social media to market your gig. Don't focus really on marketing it to other sellers on social media, other buyers on social media, because that's really hard to do for free. Like, there's not really many good groups where people are checking these groups to find qualified Fiverr sellers. They're usually just going to Fiverr and searching. So if instead you use social media to network with other sellers, that's a great opportunity, because you can build a referral network with them. So give it a shot. Let me know how it goes. All right, so Greg says, what do you think about dropshipping as a business? Again, I mean, That's kind of a vague question. I don't do drop shipping because I think that in 2021, a lot of the people drop shipping are getting into it under the assumption that it's going to be easy. You throw up some Shopify website, use Oberlo or whatever, and it takes off. So as a business, I think it's a business. You know, people drop ship. However, the focus of this channel is Fiverr, and if I were to look at Fiverr or dropshipping as an opportunity as a seller on Fiverr, the only thing I would really say is try to find ways to sell to the drop shippers, right? So, you know, if they need a website designed, a dropshipping website, you know, sell that service, or if they need product descriptions written for their products that they're drop shipping, um, find a way to offer copywriting services for that. The business of drop shipping itself is just one I'm not interested in starting because I think we're in this place in the world where people are all starting to do it without really putting the time or effort into finding ways to differentiate themselves. So if I were to look at it as a business opportunity for myself, I'd look at drop shipping and be like, how do I differentiate versus just white labeling a bunch of products that a lot of other people are white labeling? It's kind of hard to do, so I'm not the biggest fan personally, right? So Abid asks, how can we determine the demand for a particular type of service? So that's a good question. And that really is going to depend, right? So the most obvious and easy thing to do is just search through the different Fiverr categories. Look at what people are selling, the types of gigs they're selling. And if you click into a gig, it'll usually show you how many orders a seller has in their order queue, like how many people have placed orders with them and they still haven't completed those orders. So that could be an okay indicator of, you know, how much volume certain sellers in certain categories are getting, right? But outside of that, it also kind of is a little bit of a common sense exercise, right? Like we talk about this a lot on this channel. Like there are just certain categories that more sellers are in simply because they're easier to get into. Like graphic design is a great one. I think graphic design will always be in demand, right? However, when you look at it from a supply and demand perspective, there's such a high supply of graphic designers on Fiverr. And you know, there's probably a high demand for it as well. However, with so many sellers, there's so many options. So when you're looking at what categories are in high demand, think about, you know, how much skill is required to get into that category as a seller. Usually categories that require, you know, have a higher barrier to entry, you know, education or taking courses or learning certain skills, those will probably be more lucrative if there's also a demand on the client side, right? Alternatively, if you think of a category that, you know, really requires no skill, no experience, no nothing, and it's for a service that a lot of people hire out, that's probably a less in demand category, right? Because if more sellers can get into that category easily, you know, naturally there's going to be more competition. So it's a little exercise of that. Check out what other sellers are selling, right? See how many orders they have in their queue, and that should give you an indicator of the demand for their particular niche. But also just think about things you can learn that might be a little more difficult than others, because those are the things that are going to allow you to charge more and have less competition. So great question. All right, so Mr. X retracted his message. Well, what's up, Mr. X? Thanks for joining the channel. Hakeem says, do you ever receive more messages from a buyer after an order has been completed, asking you to do more things for the completed order? If yes, what do you do in that situation? So that's a fantastic question. And yes, a lot of the times after I deliver an order and after the order is completed, the buyer will ask me to do more stuff or request more work. So I protect myself from having to do that work in a couple of different ways. The first is in my gig, like on the gig, before someone orders, there's an FAQ section. One of my FAQs states that I only offer one minor revision per order. So the revision has to be relatively short, and I'll outline if it's a couple of lines or, you know, since I'm a copywriter, small amount of text, I'll do it. And the second thing I state is that if the revision that they're asking for implies that I need to do the project over, it's not included and they'll have to pay for it. So those two stipulations usually do a pretty good job of protecting me. In the situation where that's already happened and they're still asking, I simply will say, hey, the order has been completed. Unfortunately, I don't work for free. So the things you're asking for fall outside of the scope of work and the requirements that you originally hired me to complete for you. So if you want me to do them, I'm happy to, but we have to work out a price for that because this is my business and I don't work for free. I think if you do that, it'll help you prevent yourself from having to do free work, and it'll help you sell more because you shouldn't be doing work for free above and beyond what they paid for. So let me know if you think that's helpful in the comments. But that's something I've been doing, and it's really helpful. Oftentimes, when people actually ask me for more work after a project's completed, it does result in some extra a new order coming in, which is great, and that's a great way to grow how much money you're making on Fiverr. I'm just going to take a quick drink break. All right. So getting back into the questions, for those of you who've just tuned in, we're doing a live stream where I'm taking questions from people who are Fiverr sellers trying to make money. If you're curious about categories that you should sell in, profitable skills, how to make more money on Fiverr, the best ways to make more money on Fiverr, or any Fiverr related questions as a seller, put them in the live chat and I'll answer them. I'm going to go for about an hour today, as long as I have the questions to go for an hour. So thanks for joining. All right. So Daniel says, hey, Mike, I'd like to set up a gig for making explainer videos for other Fiverr sellers. Is it okay? I mean, with Fiverr. So Daniel, I think that's a great category. I know a lot of Fiverr sellers, especially Fiverr sellers who don't really speak English that well or aren't really good with written English. They'll have these explainer videos or like the whiteboard videos created to describe their service, and I think it's a great way to explain what your service is about if you have a hard time doing it yourself. So I think that's a great gig. Myself, I offer gig description writing. Like I have a gig where I will write a gig description for people. And of course, it's fine with Fiverr, right? You're helping other sellers get their business started. It's a legit gig. As long as you are clear in your description of what you're going to deliver, what's included, the cost, the FAQs, I don't think you should have any problem. But that's actually a really good category to go after, selling to other Fiverr sellers, because right now so many Fiverr sellers are joining the platform, but that's actually a good opportunity for other Fiverr sellers. Like if you sell a service that other sellers could buy to help them make more money or grow their business, you're in high demand because Fiverr is growing insanely fast. So you're going to be really taking care of that group of Fiverr sellers who need help from other sellers to get their business started. So that is an awesome category to go after. For those of you who just tuned in, Daniel asked about selling explainer videos for other Fiverr sellers for their gigs. I think that's an awesome gig to offer. So really, really good stuff. All right. InChef joined the chat. InChef says, hey, man. InChef, nice to see you. He says, just wanted advice. How do you handle personal emergencies and deadlines, and how do you manage around it? So that's a great question. I mean, for all of us as a Fiverr seller, we sell gigs, and with each gig, there's a timeline that we need to complete our gigs by. For me, how I manage life around Fiverr and making sure it doesn't result in me delivering an order late. First off, I create my order timelines so they're long enough that I have the time should anything come up. So for example, I think my shortest delivery window now is 4 days. For most of my standard or premium packages, it's like 7 to 10 days. So usually if something comes up, I'm within that window where I can deal with it, right? I also will always try to get my orders completed sooner rather than later. So if I have 5 gigs in my queue, each with a 10-day delivery timeline, I try to complete them in like 1 to 5 days. The 10-day window is kind of my safeguard or my cushion to make sure that I do have the time if something does come up. However, I haven't yet been in a situation where a personal emergency or being sick or having to help a family member has caused me to get to that deadline. So knock on wood. But if I did get in that situation, what I would probably do is I would just message the buyer, letting them know, hey, this is the situation. This order may be a day or two late. See what they say and make a game plan from there. Honestly, most people are really nice. People don't want to make life tough for each other. So I would imagine that if you're polite about it and honest, your buyers will probably be understanding and let you bump up the delivery date a little bit. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if that's something you've tried in the past, but that's how I go about it. All right, so next question here. So Abdullah says, hey, my gigs are ranked, but no orders. What do I do? So Abdullah, if you could clarify in the comments, what do you mean by your gigs are ranked? Um, do you mean that they're getting a lot of impressions and clicks, or do you mean that you've focused on building a good gig description? Let me know what you mean, because I don't know what that means, that your gigs are ranked, but you're not getting orders. So let me know what they're ranked for, what gigs you're selling, and I'll try to give you as the best advice I can. All right, so next question is from Aryan Mishra. So Aryan says, hey, I've tweaked my gig a couple of times, but I'm not getting any orders. I think it's because my description isn't good enough. So how do I write a description that actually manipulates buyers? Okay, so Asha, thanks for joining the channel. But the first thing I'm going to say is your description is, the word manipulate should never be used to describe something you're selling to a buyer, right? We're not here to manipulate buyers. What a description is intended to do is to describe what you're selling and how it can help buyers, how it can bring them value. That's the key term, value. If you can show in your description ways that you can provide value to buyers, you're going to have an easier time getting buyers, right? So I think that's number one. If you're writing a description, you shouldn't be trying to find ways to manipulate your buyers, right? Try to find ways that you can explain to them what you're offering, how that thing helps them, and why they should buy it. That's called selling, right? But this concept I'm describing is selling. So think about that. Number one also is, yeah, if you're having trouble with your description, potentially hire someone out to write it, right? Because it's very important that you have a solid gig description that actually helps people understand how you can help them. So I hope this was helpful. All right, guys, quick water break, but keep joining. I'll just be back to the questions in 2 seconds. All right. So thank you all for joining so far. We got a lot of questions in the chat. For those of you who haven't put your questions yet, any question related to Fiverr, I'm here to help answer them so that you can sell more on the Fiverr platform. That's what these streams are all about. So thank you for joining. And by the way, Happy New Year to anyone who I haven't wished Happy New Year to yet. I hope 2021 is really good for all of us. All right, so Hakeem says, okay, thanks for the 2 answers, specifically to the second one. No problem. I hope they were helpful. Let me know, put it in a comment of a future video if things have been improving. And, if not, let me know what you think's going on and we can talk about it to try to find ways to help improve further. All right, so another question from Aryan. Aryan says, also, thank you so much because the 2 orders that I have wouldn't be possible without your video. So Aryan, that is awesome. I'm really happy to hear that. That is the goal of this channel. Fiverr is such an awesome opportunity for making money, and if I can help in any way, that makes me really happy. So good job. I hope you get many more orders, and keep watching and subscribing to the channel. All right, so we got another one from Nick K. Mars. So he says, hi, thanks for your videos. Really helpful for all of us. One question, in your experience, does reaching level 1 seller increase your stats, like impressions and the overall performance of your gig? So Nick, welcome to the stream. Thank you for your question. And to answer your question, so Nick asks whether or not being a level 1 seller helps improve your statistics, like how many impressions or the performance of your gig. So I'm going to answer this question in 2 parts. The first is going to be from a buyer perception perspective. So I think that yes, the higher you go in the seller ranks, the better impression you're going to make on potential buyers, right? Like if I'm a buyer and I see a seller who's not yet rated versus a level 1 seller, I'm going to think the level 1 seller has been doing it longer, probably has more experience and is more proven, right? So that would be important to me as a buyer, and I know it's probably important to other buyers. So from that perspective, yes, it'll probably help your gig perform because people are going to be more receptive to ordering from you because they trust you more. However, the other side of this answer has to do with Fiverr. And I don't really think there's a correlation between gig or seller rank and how highly your gigs rank in Fiverr search. I think that there are definitely benefits to being a higher rank, right? Like you can filter gigs based on seller level, which I think a lot of buyers probably do. However, I think for Fiverr search, it's mostly based on your gig's SEO and how well it ranks in search. So moral of the story, the higher seller rank you can get to, the better it's going to help. But I don't think it has any tangible impact to the efforts you should be putting in, right? whether you're a level 1 seller or a top rated seller, the idea is we should be delivering the same quality of work so that buyers rate us highly, we make more money, we can charge more for our services, and we can move up those ranks and sell more. So Nick, great question. I hope it was helpful. All right, so Abdullah says for lead generation impressions, 2 to 300 ranked on first page clicks, just 1 and 2. Okay, so Abdullah asked earlier, they've tweaked their gig and ranked it, but still no orders, and he just clarified that he's getting 2 to 300 impressions per day, I assume, and just 1 or 2 clicks. So what this tells me is if you're getting that many impressions, like 200 impressions a day is pretty good, but you're not getting any clicks, either your thumbnail is kind of not good, right? Like clicks are what they sound like, clicks. You have to get people to click through. So if you have high impressions, it means you're doing a good job of getting your gig to appear, right? But you're not doing a good job necessarily of getting people to click it once they see it. So maybe focus on making better thumbnails, maybe hire someone to design better thumbnails for you. And also, like, I'd be curious, what service are you offering, right? Because if you're getting a lot of impressions, but you're like 1 of 2 gigs in a category that nobody buys from, that could be something too, right? Like if your gig just isn't in a popular niche, that could affect why you might not be getting any orders. So let me know, and we'll see if we can figure this out together. So Ariane clarifies, he says, thinking about it, manipulate is definitely a wrong word. Sorry, I didn't mean it that way. No problem, but like, really, that's what it boils down to. When I describe the difference between manipulating buyers and offering value, should always be about offering value. If we can offer value consistently, buyers are just going to keep buying from us. That's kind of the trick of sales, whether it be online, in person, whatever. We need to find ways to offer value. If we know we can offer value, but we're not getting any orders or not making any money, it's our responsibility to find ways to offer and show that value. So in the case of Arian's question, it has to do with the gig description. There's I think you can do 3,000 characters or 1,200 characters in there. Use as much as possible to do the best job possible to describe your gig. So people know, hey, this looks like a fantastic gig. I want to buy it. If people have that impression of your gigs, it's going to be a lot easier for you. That's kind of the approach I've taken, and it's worked really, really well. So awesome question. Thanks for joining the stream. All right, so Inshaf Kafour has a couple questions. So he says, most people are actually nice, to be honest. Then there are the few bad eggs. The last client I worked with had 6 to 7 revisions and new additions to which I obliged. He later asked for source files, and then I denied, and I was left without a review. P.S. 25% of my clients end up not providing feedback. Must be a bummer. So, Inshaf, I think you're a prime example of someone who should maybe think about capping how many revisions you offer, like 6 to 7 revisions. At least to me, I'm a copywriter. Like I sell emails, website copy, stuff like that. 7 revisions would make it not worth my time, right? Based on what I charge, I set my prices based on maybe 1 revision. Anything more than that, I'm starting to eat into my hourly rate, and that's not something I want to do. So if you find yourself in situations where buyers are asking you for almost 10 revisions, you got to change something, in my opinion, right? And what I would do is put it in your FAQs outlining what qualifies as a revision, how many revisions you offer per order, and that if anything above that number of revisions is requested, they may need to pay you more. That's just how I would go about it. Revisions are a really sticky topic because I know a lot of sellers use it as a tool to convince buyers to buy from them. A lot of people will be like, oh, unlimited revisions, 24 hours delivery. But the reality is that's not always in our best interest, right? And the other thing you mentioned is that only 25% of your clients don't leave feedback. That's pretty common. I think I only have my percentage of orders reviewed is in the 60% range. So I actually probably have even less. But maybe it just has to do with the categories we're in, right? And I don't ask for ratings anymore. I used to, in the early orders, I would say hey, don't forget to rate the experience you had when I'm delivering the order. But now I don't ask. Maybe if I asked, it would help pump those numbers up. But yeah, it is what it is. So Phillips Dab says, hi, logo design. So hi, Phillips. What do you want to know about logo design? Let me know what you're thinking, and maybe I can be helpful. So Ariane says, thanks, man. My pleasure. Really happy you're in the stream, and I really hope it's helpful. By the way, everyone here, what we're talking about in the stream is really helpful. But if you haven't already, a lot of the things and the answers I'm giving you are related to videos I've already made, and a lot of them are in the description of this live stream. I have videos. A more recent one I just created about how to get referral orders. That's probably the best way to get orders on Fiverr. Tips for copywriters and things like that. There's a ton of them. Take the time to watch them if you have the time, right? It would really help in these conversations as well, because it would mean that you've already heard the concepts and we can work on improving them together. So video links are in the description. There's a ton on the channel. Check them out. Just putting it out there. All right, so Abed says, when sorting a gig using bestseller, what is the indicator that used to pick the gig that is the bestseller? I noticed some gigs have less reviews that upon other gigs have more reviews to be best selling. So Abed, I actually don't know what Fiverr uses to sort those search criteria for. Like if you can filter the seller by bestseller or most relevant. Most relevant might be just most related to the keywords the buyer searched for. So that would be SEO related, right? If we're talking best selling, maybe it's, a calculation based on the number of orders these sellers have gotten in the last like 7, 10, 30 days or something like that. And Fiverr pushes those to the top. Really, I don't know the answer to that. It probably is a good question for Fiverr's chat or FAQ or the knowledge base, because I'm sure they have a way that they calculate who appears based on these search filters. So yeah, great question, but I really don't know the answer at this time. Ask Fiverr. So Danielle Iqbal says, changing my gig image will affect my gig ranking, question mark. Maybe, right? So mostly I feel that gig ranking is influenced by the SEO and the power of your description and your gig title combined with the competition in your niche, right? I look at gig thumbnail mostly as something that might help you increase the amount of clicks you're getting, right? Like there's no real metadata really in your gig thumbnail. So however, I do also feel that any change you make to your gig might prompt Fiverr to review it and maybe kind of pause. I don't know how to explain this. Maybe pause how well it's performing in search while they rank it. So you might get like a day where everything drops to zero and bounces back up. But in the long run, if you have a gig that is simply not getting clicked and not getting ordered, changing a thumbnail is a good idea. Like tweaking the gig and testing new things out to see what works. Not a bad idea. I have changed some of my thumbnails many times. However, on my highest performing gigs that are getting me like thousands of dollars per month, I just leave them. I know that the thumbnails aren't as good as I could make them based on the fact that I made them years ago, but I don't want to mess with something that's working really well. So if you have gigs that are performing really, really well, but you think you can improve the thumbnail, you kind of need to ask yourself the question, is it worth it? Am I getting enough orders from this gig? Or maybe I create another gig for a similar type of service and I make a better thumbnail for that one. I don't know. That's kind of a dilemma we all have to have internally. So InChef says, thanks, Mike. Haven't you considered creating a course on Udemy? No, I have not considered creating a course on Udemy because I think that most of this knowledge should be free, right? I'm here because Fiverr has been an opportunity that has allowed me to make thousands of dollars per month and has really changed my life. And I think that there's such a big opportunity for Fiverr to change the lives of people all over the world. And I happen to have some skills with some sales experience where I can help people do that. So would I create a course on Udemy? I really don't know. Right now, it's not in the plans. I don't really want to charge for this type of content, right? Like for the most part, it should be free. I mean, is it nice to make money from talking about this type of stuff? Yes. But I think it should mostly be free. I mean, I have a Patreon and there's channel memberships on this channel where like for a fee, people can get extra help from me where I'll do like group coaching sessions and stuff, but that's pretty much it. I'm not selling a course at this point. Will I in the future? I don't know. Like if this channel gets so big and I have so many videos that it becomes really hard to find stuff, I might create like longer videos in the form of courses and put them on the channel for free, or I don't know. I really haven't thought about selling courses just because I think that we've done, like all of us, we've we've come so far together, and this information can be helpful for so many people. So giving it away for free, there's ads on this YouTube channel and stuff. So it's not like it's all for nothing. It's a cool hobby of mine, and like it's awesome to see people doing better and making money. So to your question, no, I haven't really considered creating a Udemy course. Why? Because I think I can help people for free, and I don't know. I like where this is at right now, and I really enjoy talking to all of you. So that's kind of where I'm at. All right. So next question is from Shivam. So I've seen Shivam in the chat before. What's up? Thanks for joining. Shivam says, "Hey Mike, I'm a level 2 seller, but now I am not getting any orders. When I was a level 1 seller, I used to get a lot of orders. Even I had all 5-star ratings with $60 average sell price." So Shivam, did you get I don't know. So you're level 2 seller, and you're not getting any orders. I don't know. Like, just from hearing your little comment there, it doesn't really give me any indication of why you might be getting less orders. It could be the time of the year. Like if you're a pretty new seller and it's been like a few months, I know January is a slower time for sales generally. That might have something to do with it. But unless something has changed, I don't think there's anything I can really point at to be like, hey, that's why you're getting less orders, right? Like something needs to have changed. So maybe just wait it out, see if things improve as we go into February, and then make a decision of maybe needing to tweak your gigs. That might be helpful for you. Hope that helps. All right, so Tom says, I get a lot of messages or buyers messaging me. We talk, and once the scope is clear, I give my price, and then they think it's too expensive, but they could see my prices on my gig. Should I talk price sooner? So, good question. So Tom, how I usually handle conversations with buyers is, if you know how like when a buyer messages you, you can see on the top of the mobile app like which gig they messaged you through, right? So if I see that and they're asking me questions about the gig, I'll answer all of the questions, right? And if they go, oh, how much would this cost? If it aligns with my gig, I don't even tell them what the price is in the chat. I copy the link to the gig and I say, hey, thank you so much for asking. You actually messaged me through this gig. All of my prices are defined on that gig, including gig extras, FAQs, what's included. Check it out and let me know if you have any questions. So the reason I do this is I always like putting the ball in the buyer's court when it comes to negotiation. I don't want to say, oh, it's $50. Do you want it? Because naturally every buyer's gonna be like, oh, that's too expensive. So when they ask for a price, I say, hey, here's the link to my gig. All the prices are there. Let me know. Now there's an opportunity where when they respond to you and they say, oh, those are so expensive. Like, listen, those are the prices I need to charge to deliver the quality of work you're saying you want, right? If you want this, and this done, like this quality of work, that's what it's going to cost. That's what I need to charge for my time to be worth my while. If it's too much for you, there's a lot of cheaper, lower quality sellers on Fiverr. You're free to look at them. I know it sounds crazy, but if you say something like that, where it's basically, hey, the cost is the cost, I do great work, and if you want great work, that's the cost, it's actually pretty powerful. And a lot of people will respond and be like, oh, like the response I get to that a lot of the times is, oh, I'm so sorry. I totally understand. I'm the same way. I feel the same about my business. I was just trying to see if I could get a discount. A lot of people just do that to get a discount. They're kind of playing chicken with you. So try something like that, right? Like we don't need to chase orders, right? Like the perception that we are confident in our services and we want their business, but we don't need their business is a powerful one, right? Like if a buyer feels that you absolutely need this order and you're dying for the order and you'll do anything for it, they're going to push you around, they're going to beat you down on price, and they might not even order from you. However, if they talk to you and they're like, oh wow, this guy knows what he's doing, this guy is confident that his service is fantastic, and he won't budge on price because his time is valuable, they're going to view you at a higher level than the other seller, because they're like, this guy's just begging me for the order. This guy's saying he'll do it, but he's not going to budge on price. He delivers quality work. He's got standards. That will help you. Believe it or not, having that confidence and the mindset that I want the order, but I don't need the order. If you can convey that to your buyer when you're negotiating, it will be powerful. So try that out, Tom, and let me know how it goes, because that is something a lot of people get uncomfortable with, is the price conversation. But it shouldn't be scary, right? It's really they're reaching out to us, right? Like they want to hire us. We're oftentimes, unless it's a buyer request, we're not messaging them. So remember that. All right. So Inam says, how do you choose the right keyword for your gig? Good question. Inam, I have a lot of videos on this channel that talk about how to do keyword research, SEO, and kind of boost your impressions. So check those out. In short, it takes some research. You got to review other gigs. You got to think about what sellers or buyers might be searching for, and you kind of combine your research and what you think would make sense into your keyword strategy. It's not rocket science, but it does take some practice and some time and some effort. So that's what you got to do. There are videos on this channel that talk about how to do that in greater detail. So check them out. Usually they have the word impressions in the video title because that's what keywords help you do. They help you boost impressions. So check them out. Subscribe to the channel also, and you won't miss any future videos that I put out about keywords. So hope that's helpful. All right, so Danielle says, is it okay to target very, very low competition niches like 100 to 500 gigs? So that's a good question. It depends, right? Like if you think it's a low competition niche because nobody cares about it and people just don't buy that service, then it might be a waste of your time, right? However, if you're just starting out and you want to kind of test the waters, sure, I'm all about kind of trial and error and seeing what works, right? Like if you want to target a low competition niche and it ends up becoming a niche that people are really interested in and you're one of the first people there, that's going to really help you get a leg up and basically get a monopoly on all the orders coming in, right? However, I always say use common sense. So, I got a question recently. Someone was asking me about video game coaching or something. Like, I'm all about selling whatever you want to sell on Fiverr, but like, you got to just think to yourself, are people actually buying this? Like, I think something like hiring someone to coach you how to play Counter-Strike versus hiring, a digital marketing expert to help you sell a product. Which one do you think people are going to be buying more? It's the digital marketing service, right? Like a bunch of people playing Counter-Strike, people play Counter-Strike or video games for free, right? So just it's commonsensical too. Like think about the niche you're targeting. If it's low competition because it sucks, maybe don't waste your time. However, if it's low competition just because it's new, that could be a great opportunity, right? So take that into consideration. So Daniel says, thanks a lot. No problem. Siraj Ul Hussein says, hey, thanks for helping. My tweaks are not working and impressions are decreasing. What is the best strategy to rank high? So Siraj, I mean, you kind of answered the question, but so tweaking your gig is important to figuring out what's going to work, right? If your impressions are decreasing, I would be curious to know, like, what's the time period over which they're decreasing? If it's just a couple of days, don't worry about it. Like impressions fluctuate. Like I have days where I get 2,000 impressions a day on one of my gigs, but then the next day it drops to 300. So if they're decreasing over the long term, like over a period of 6 months, maybe you need to consider spending some more time figuring out why they're decreasing and maybe thinking up a new keyword strategy and maybe write out a better description and things like that. If you just changed it and like over the last couple of days they're decreasing, just be calm. This happens. It takes time for gigs to get indexed and for them to perform. So take into consideration the time period that you're reviewing these statistics and use that to make a decision as to whether or not it's the tweaks that are causing your impressions to drop or it's just a bad week. So think about that. Danielle says, you skipped my question. No, I didn't. I just answered it. It was about competition. So maybe it just appeared before or after someone on your end due to internet, whatever. But I answered it. Hope that was helpful. So Philina Anuksha says, hey, Mike, there are always ups and downs in Fiverr orders, but when we don't get orders for 3 to 4 days, we usually get anxious and worried. Can you tell me how you deal with these types of situations? Yes. So I get a little bit of like imposter syndrome all the time. Like when I have a period of time where I'm not getting orders for like a week, I get a little worried. I'm like, wow, like Fiverr is awesome. I don't want it to go away. What can I do? What I usually do is I'll just take a break. Like if I'm not getting orders for a week, I'll think about something else. I'll read more. I'll hang out with my girlfriend. I'll do other things. It's going to happen, right? There are going to be times where we're not getting orders. So unless the reason I'm not getting orders is because I messed something up or I had a bad rating or I got a canceled order, if it's just a slow week, I try not to worry about it because Fiverr's like this. Like, I've been doing it for 2 years. There are weeks where I get 10 orders and there are weeks where I get none. So use it as an opportunity to kind of self-reflect, enjoy other aspects of your life. That's what I do, and I find it's really helpful because it can be really unhealthy to just worry about when the next Fiverr order is going to be coming in every day, right? Like, it fluctuates. You just got to understand that, and that'll really help you. So great question, and I know a lot of people probably feel this way. If you get an order, 2 orders in 2 days, and then it takes you 10 days to get the next one, we all get a little bit of anxiety. So I hope that helps. Alrighty. Next one. So Philip says, I'm losing impressions and clicks. What can I do to fix it? So Philip, what do you mean? How many impressions are you losing? How many are you getting per day? Over what period of time? We just kind of talked about this. Let me know, because that's important. If it's just a couple days, it's just a couple days. However, if you've changed something major in your gigs and it's just not ranking highly anymore for whatever reason, you might need to reassess, right? So think about that. So Daniela says, thanks for answering. My pleasure. Happy you're here. So hope it's helpful. InChef says, love the attitude, man. 5 out of 5 for everything you said so far from the channel. I've watched everything from scratch and that actually worked. I have motivation to myself up to a channel. InChef, I'm so happy the channel is helpful. You know, you got to have a positive attitude. I like talking to you guys. I like helping. This has been such a cool hobby for me, growing this YouTube channel, because I had no clue there were so many people who could benefit from this, just a guy like me talking about stuff that I have a little bit of experience with. It's awesome. It's really awesome. So it's a win-win. And I really hope it keeps growing. Like, it's so cool to, like, the fact that I know there's like 20 people on the stream right now, but there's 20 people from around the world who are trying to better themselves and make more money. I think that's fantastic. And when I could be a part of that, that's amazing. So another question from this Physiocator says, Mike, can you suggest some Fiverr gig ideas related to copywriting, specifically to social media? So here's the thing. Great question. The short answer is yes, I can recommend things, right? But here's the thing with copywriting. Part of what makes copywriters in high demand is that they have an understanding of why a buyer might hire them, right? They've gotten really good at something. They've learned the industry they're targeting, and they've learned ways to sell that. So I would challenge you to spend some time researching gigs on Fiverr related to copywriting and social media, and get an understanding of what people are selling and what people want to buy. From there, you make the decision of what the best gig is for you based on what you think you can actually do and offer value to, right? Like, look at the gigs, look at the services, you know, and figure it out for yourself. Like, off the top of my head, you know, Facebook ads, everyone's doing it. Or, you know, email marketing or Instagram account management. There's a million things that you can do in copywriting related to social media, because there's just a million ways that people use social media to make money. But all that really matters is the way that you think you can deliver great value to your buyers. And that's the category you should go after, because there's no point in going after a category that someone else says is good, but you actually can't deliver the work. That's just a lose-lose, right? So think about it that way. But it's good that you're thinking about that, because it is important to find a niche, and it sounds like you've targeted social media, so good job. So Ayub says, hey, Mike. Hey, Ayub, thanks for joining. Donald Nicola says, good morning, Mike. I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you for all your videos. You have inspired me greatly to create a business on Fiverr. Thank you. Thank you. That's awesome. Get started. Like, this is what I say. Like, if these videos can either help you make more money or help you start, that's amazing. Starting is often the hardest part, right? So I always put links to like Skillshare in the description. If you're someone like Donald who's thinking about starting but you don't know what to sell, there's so many free online learning platforms or free trials you can sign up for to help you just learn stuff in your spare time, because that is half the battle, is being confident in a skill that you can sell for profit on Fiverr. That's kind of like the seed of growing a business. So Donald, happy to hear that you're doing it, and let us know how it goes. I really hope that you have a lot of success this year and going forward, of course. So Tom says, love that tip and mindset. Will do. Thanks, Mike. Appreciate the response. Tom, I've seen you in the chat before. It's my pleasure. I hope it's really helpful and it helps you negotiate. So awesome. Saeed Hassan Zaman says, happy to see you, Mike. Happy to see you too. Thanks for being so active on the channel. He says, nowadays my ranking is going down, though I'm level 1 now, but I don't know why it's happening. Before the holiday season, my impressions were really awesome, but after that, everything is full on. Okay, so you've given me a little bit of information there, specifically the timeline that your impressions have dropped. Things slow down in December and January. Full stop. This YouTube channel has lost traffic in December and January. My Fiverr sales have kind of fluttered down in December and January. It's just something that happens, right? You got to think, December is the holiday season, there's Christmas time, there's New Year's Eve, there's a lot of events that people are spending a lot of money on and spending a lot of time with their family on, right? So on a global platform like Fiverr, we're sometimes affected by that, right? If it's a holiday for many of the countries we sell to as sellers, it's going to affect how viewed our gig is, how many orders we get, how many buyers we're talking to. So don't panic. You know, in a situation like this where you've noticed things dipping in December and January, just wait it out. See what happens in February. Usually, you know, things bounce back after the holidays. So keep that in mind. It's not the end of the world, but it's good that you've noticed, but just stick with it. Like, ride it out. Remember, Fiverr comes in waves. So good question, and thanks for joining the stream. Ayub says, I got my first order today. Thanks so much. That's fantastic. Good job. First orders are always important, right? And they're always exciting because they kind of prove that, hey, like, this is real. I can make money on Fiverr. So Ayub, if you don't mind, what services are you selling? Let us know in the chat, and how long did it take to get your first order? You know, I put out a video a while ago where I did a new experiment. I created a new gig, and I wanted to see how long it would take me to get an order. I'm like a level 2 seller who gets a lot of orders, and it took me like 2 months. So I'm curious to know how long it took you from the day you started selling on Fiverr. I think that could be really helpful information for other people who might be getting discouraged because it's taking a long time. But congratulations on getting your first order. That is fantastic. All right, so Chucks Ebeke, sorry if I mispronounced that. He says, hey Mike, what's up? Do you know of any idea for graphic design that sells? So Chuck, we talk about this a lot. Graphic design, a lot of people do it. Hard to find a niche that you can stand out in. However, I think it is always in need. As for graphic design gigs that sell, I think they all sell. I think if I were to be a graphic designer today, like if I were to flick a switch and become a graphic designer, I'd probably focus on like YouTube thumbnails or, you know, product advertisements targeted towards like, you know, people selling online, designing like website pages to sell products and things like that. So like YouTube thumbnails or like product images, I think are probably a good place to start in 2021. So hope that was helpful. All right, Yassine says, I created a new account in Fiverr, but I don't understand the steps for giving the first order. So Yassine, congrats on creating a Fiverr account, but it's going to take some time. You need to do some research, right? If you don't know how the steps to creating a gig or an order, this channel might be helpful, but honestly, in your situation, just review Fiverr. Like, they have FAQs, they have guides, they have things that can help you create your first account. So pause, take the time to read and learn what you need to do to create your gig and your account, and then do it, right? Like, don't rush it. Like, you gotta be confident that you know what you're doing. So take the time to do that. It's really great to hear that you're getting started, but do your research, figure it out, and you should be just fine. So welcome to the Fiverr community. Felina says, thanks, Mike. My pleasure. Ayub says, I only have one problem, and it doesn't know how to convince the buyer request to buy from me. So Ayub, buyer requests, we've talked about this. There's a video on this channel where I talk about buyer requests, and it's like a tutorial where I break down how I would respond to buyer requests. Check that video out. It is helpful, but I will put it out there. Buyer requests are difficult because it's hard to stand out. So in that video, I kind of talk about how I would stand out and also some strategies that are more effective than buyer requests for getting the order. So check out that video. It's called Fiverr Buyer Request Tutorial. It should be helpful. All right. Philip says, I have a total of 1.7K impression in 7 days. I have 204 impressions, but no orders. So Phillips, how many clicks do you have? Impressions are good, but if you have no clicks, work on your thumbnails. That could really help. Like 1.7 thousand impressions is good. Work on your thumbnail. See what happens. But you're on the right track for impressions for sure. So Alex Gomez says, thank you so much. My pleasure, Alex. Thanks for joining the stream. All right, another one from Saeed. He says, thank you so much for encouraging. I really in debt of your help, and I used to share your channel to the newbies in the friend circles in Pakistan. Tons of thanks. Saeed, that's awesome, man. It's great to hear that you find this helpful. And the fact that you've been sharing this with your friends, that's the biggest compliment, right? Like, thank you so much, man. I really hope you have a lot of success, and I hope your friends have success on Fiverr this year too. So thank you for being an awesome friend. That's amazing. So the Physiocator says, I've created a YouTube channel only for the Fiverr marketing purposes. What is your opinion on it? So, I mean, my opinion is any marketing is good, right? Like anything you're willing to do, you just got to do it. So like, if you have the time to market through YouTube, do it, man. Like anything is better than nothing. That's something I always say. Like people tend to fall into this routine where they'll create a Fiverr gig and then they'll get upset because they're not getting any orders, but they're not doing anything. So if creating a way to market your Fiverr gigs online is something you want to do, awesome. You should totally do it. But stick with it. Focus on providing value. And I really wish you luck. But if you do the right things, good things usually happen. So I'm really confident that that's probably a good idea. Syed sends like a heart. Thanks, man. Te Nyam says, any tips on how to do consistent order? How to get consistent orders coming in? So Te, first of all, I reviewed your profile in the past, so I hope things have been going good. Tips on how to get consistent orders? Yes. So it relates to things we just talked about. It relates to doing proactive things to get your gig out there. So in that buyer request tutorial video I put out, I actually talk about how you can use email marketing to get more orders. Check it out. Find ways to market your gig off the platform. Share it with your friends. Call businesses and tell them about what you do. Find ways to get your gig out there. That is the best way to get consistent orders, because if you're not getting enough just from Fiverr search, you got to do something. Like it's you or Fiverr who's going to market your gig. And Fiverr has an algorithm. You have energy to do stuff, so find ways that you can market it. Reach out to businesses, tell people about it, and that should help you influence how many orders you're getting in more consistently. So I think that will be very helpful. So Ayub says, I started last week and my gig was on games. So Ayub, that's awesome. An order in a week. That's fantastic. What do you mean on games? Like video games? Like what do you do? Let me know. The Physiocator says, nice, Mike. Thank you for all the questions. All right. Atta says, hey, Mike, what's your take on multiple gigs when you're starting out? And do we have to target low traffic search terms? So Atta, first of all, thanks for joining the stream and thank you for the question. I actually, I have mixed feelings on this. However, mainly I always say if you're a new seller and you're kind of limited in scope of the services and the value you can deliver to buyers, I always say start with one gig and focus on building that gig up so you can get some ratings, reviews, and kind of get the momentum moving in your favor, right? So I talk about this a lot. I have a copywriting tutorial. It's probably like the most viewed video on this channel. But the first few steps talk about how to create a first gig, how to tweak and improve that gig, then how to create a second gig and a third gig and so on, and kind of piggyback off each gig to improve your business. So to answer your question, I think it's the best plan for Fiverr sellers to start with one gig and focus on really making that gig awesome. Get it to the point where you're getting a lot of orders. Get it to the point where you would be happy just having that gig. And then start jumping up and making more gigs so you can maximize the amount you're earning. That's what I did. Like I started with email copywriting and it got to the point where I was getting a lot of orders. I was like, wow, this is awesome. I want to sell something else. Then I started doing like LinkedIn messages, website content, product descriptions. And I just kind of like learned and developed all these new skills. And now I have a bunch of gigs, and my email one is still my highest performing gig, but I get a lot of orders in the other ones. So I think that's a good strategy. Focus on one, get to the point where you're like a master of that one, and then create one that's like complementary to it. So people who are interested in your first one might also buy your second one. That's the strategy I took, and it was really helpful. So TE says, what's the best gig description to rank up the SEO? So that's kind of a tough question to answer. There is no best gig description, right? SEO is specific to the category, to the niche, to the gig you're selling, to the keyword. So it's not about just copying and pasting a gig description that works from SEO. It's taking the time to figure out the SEO or the SEO strategy you should be taking for a certain gig. And we talk about this a lot on this channel. There's videos I put out about how to get impressions, and it's usually all focused around SEO, right? Like, and good gig description. So I encourage you to check that out. Check out their gig reviews playlist. There, I talk about other people's gig descriptions a lot and kind of break down how you guys can improve. But yeah, there's no one best way of doing SEO for a gig. The best way is to do it, like just try to do it and always look at improving it. Like if you're being mindful about creating a gig description with SEO in mind, it's going to be better than just something you threw together not even thinking about it. So I think that's what you should do. Review some of those other videos, do some research, some keyword research, and you probably will realize a really positive impact to your gigs, right? Like that's part of marketing, right? When it comes to SEO, it's trial and error. You got to try new things, see what's working, see what's not, and always find ways to improve. And that's what's going to allow you to make a ton of money on Fiverr. If you always have this learner's mindset where you always want to improve, you probably will improve. So that's what I think about that. All right, let's keep it going. So Zep Cam says, if I share my profile, will you give some feedback? Yes, but it will not be, I won't give feedback if you're just leaving it in a comment. You got to send me an email. I have a playlist on this channel where I take profiles for review. You got to send me an email, and there's a couple things you need to send in that email in order for me to make that video. So check it out. Send me an email, and I'd be happy to give you a review and talk about your profile on this channel. You mentioned that you do financial modeling. Not something I'm particularly experienced in, but I'd be happy to take a look at your gig and tell you ways that I think you might be able to improve it. So check out my gig review playlist. The first video in that playlist outlines how to contact me using the email on my About page. And away we go. I'll review your stuff. I have a big queue of these, though, so I go through them in order. So send it as soon as possible, and as soon as I get to it, I will review it. So Ayub says, I got my first order from a buyer request. That's amazing, man. That is fantastic. Really, really good. Proud of you, man. That's not easy to do for a first order, so really good work. So Thomas Winterburn says, hey, Mike, how are you doing? Thomas, my man, I'm doing fantastic. I think I try to recognize the names of people on the channel because, there's so many people who are recurring. It looks like this is the first time I'm seeing you, so welcome. I hope this stuff is helpful. If you have a question that I could help out with, I'd totally be happy to. If you want to share the services you sell on Fiverr and how long it took you to get your first order or something like that, that type of stuff is always really helpful for the other viewers on the channel. So welcome to the channel. Really pumped to see a new face here, and yeah, I really hope I can be helpful, man. So cheers and nice to see you this morning. All right, Philip says clicks in total of 87 clicks in 7 days, 2 clicks. So I don't, and then he puts like a monkey. Phil, I don't understand what you're describing, but like I said, try to think about why things are decreasing. It could be the time of year, right? January is slow. Look at it from all angles and see if something bad has happened, a bad review, cancellation, or if it's just time of year, or maybe you changed your gig. You gotta look at it from all angles. So yeah, I really hope these answers have been helpful. But off the top of my head, I can't assume why your clicks might have been dropping this week. But it happens. Fiverr's inconsistent, right? Just be mindful of it. See if there's an opportunity to improve, and take that step for yourself, and it should be helpful. So TE Gam says, on a personal note, is this YouTube Fiverr your full time, or do you have a full time career? So this is my hobby, man. I love helping you guys. Like I mentioned, Inshaf question or asked a while ago whether I'd be selling a course. I really love interacting with you guys. Especially in 2020, this channel has been an awesome outlet for creativity. A way for me to try to help people. It's my passion project. I actually started selling on Fiverr because one of my dreams was to become a writer. I wanted to write. I think the idea of writing a book, like a story that people love and gets purchased and read all around the world, is awesome. So years ago, this is kind of like my backstory. I was looking for ways online to practice writing because I read a book by Stephen King called On Writing, and he always talked about, the best way to become a writer is to first read a lot and second write a lot. But I was always so busy with life that I never wrote a lot. So I was like, how can I get paid to practice my writing? And I found Fiverr. I was like, oh, if I can find a way to sell copywriting services, I would practice. I'd practice my writing and get paid. So it's kind of something I've been doing from a Fiverr perspective to help myself improve as a writer, which has now become a profitable hobby. So yeah, man, great question. So my healing journey says, "Hey Mike, found your channel recently trying to get a side hustle going. Not sure where to start. I work in sales but don't have writing skills as much. Love your thoughts and advice." So my healing journey, welcome to the channel. Always cool to start out on a side hustle for the first time. Having sales experience is awesome. You say you don't have writing experience. Where to start? I mean, that's really up to you. Like you really need to look internally, do a bit of a self assessment, and try to figure out what you can do that can offer value to other people. So, in your comment, you mentioned you've done sales. Maybe you can help people sell their products, right? Find a way that you can help people do that. And that's something you could do. If that's not something you want to do, think of things that you're passionate about that you think would also bring value to other people. That it's as simple as that. What can you do well, and what will people buy from you? So it might take some trial and error in the early days, like testing out what sells and what doesn't. But I think the most important thing to think about when you're trying to figure out something to sell is thinking about what you're good at and what you can do to help other people that they'll pay for. It's as simple as that. But it's really exciting to hear you're starting out, and I hope you have some success. Really. So Ayub says my gig is about advertising for competitions. That's really cool. I know esports is a growing industry in general. Like a lot of big cities are buying the rights for professional esports teams. So that's cool. I mean, especially after this year, once we get out of this craziness that's affecting the world, I'm sure esports competitions are going to be popping up everywhere. So that's a great gig. I think it's really timely, and I think it offers like a relevant value to something that companies are going to be hiring people to do now, which is marketing these competitions. So I think you're on the right track, man. Keep it up. All right, next one on the list. So Filina Anuksha says, I have subscribed to you for 3 YouTube accounts and have been a Patreon for 2 to 3 months. That's all I can do to help you back at this point. Really appreciate it. Honestly, that's not just all you can do. That is amazing that you're doing that. I really appreciate it. Patreon's kind of just something I put up because a lot of people ask if this is my full-time income. Maybe it will become it one day, and Patreon's kind of one of the vessels to do that. It's by no means mandatory, so I'm really appreciative that you've chosen to support me there. Um, Thank you so much. It really makes me feel nice to hear that. So, Thelina, I hope I can continue to be helpful for you, and thank you so much for your support. That's really nice of you. Thank you. All right, so Thomas Winterburn, so it says having strong sales is perfect for transferring career into copywriting. My healing journey, yeah, he's bang on, right? So when I answered her question or my healing journey's question, I mentioned got to do something you like. If you're in sales and you want to get into Fiverr, helping people sell, that's a great option. And copywriting is a big part of sales. Writing like the sales copy on a website, email marketing copy. There's so much you can do. You just got to think to yourself, what are you good at, right? Like what can you transfer from your career and skills and translate that into a way to help people? So yeah, Thomas, awesome insight. Totally. Yeah, great tip overall. So Danielle says, I created my gig on December 21st and received my first order on December 31st. Wow. Or 30th. That's fast. Second on the 8th of January. Third on the 11th of January. So far feeling good about Fiverr. Yeah, I would be too. 3 orders in your first month in like December, January timeline is fantastic. It didn't take me. I didn't do it that fast either. So great work. Like props to you. That is fantastic. All right, so Ayub said, I've sent you an email and will you review it? So Ayub, yes, However, I do get a lot of emails and I review them in the order that they come in, just to be fair to everyone, right? So I have a bunch. So will your profile review be up next week? I'm 100% positive it won't, but I'm working on getting one out every Saturday. That's kind of the workload. Like I'm doing videos usually on Wednesdays and Saturdays, and the Saturdays are usually the profile reviews. So I'm trying my best to up the output. I'll get to it as soon as I can. I just need you to work with me here and be patient because there's a lot of people who are asking for help, and I'm trying my best to help all of you. So yeah, I will get to it. Thank you so much for sending it. So Alex Gomez says, can you describe in a few words about your niche and what you sell? Yes, I'm a copywriter. I sell copywriting services, sales emails, website content, product descriptions. I'll write people's Kickstarter campaigns to help them raise money for their Kickstarter products or services that they're launching. So my general focus is copywriting, but I've been very specific. I've created gigs generally in areas that I think that I can offer value, right? I'm always looking for new ways to improve though. I'm always trying to learn new things. Like I haven't done any sort of ebook writing or anything like that yet, but I'm open to anything, right? So the main thing is whether I'm passionate about it, whether I think I can be good at it, and whether I can deliver value and people will buy it. So kind of just broadly a copywriter. Great question though. All right, so Ata says, ethical question. Thoughts on asking people to buy and review off platform to kickstart your gig, or do you feel we should wait for however many months it takes to get your first order? So, I mean, you answer that for yourself. Like, personally, I'm never a fan of gaming the system. I'm never a fan of like videos that are like the get rich quick method where there's no work involved. Here's a magical trick. Like, I'm not a fan of those things. So when I think about hiring people to just order fake gigs and review me, I'm also on the fence about it, right? Like I'm more so in the mindset of that's probably not cool, right? Because other people are trying to do this too. However, what you could do is if you have friends or family who are running a business and you can help them, be like, hey, listen, I'm just starting this new Fiverr thing. Can you hire me? I'll give you a discount. Just please, I want to hire. Let me show you that I can do good work. You can leave me a review. That'd be really helpful. That would be fine. But just farming fake orders, I don't think it's super ethical. And I also think that like if Fiverr notices a theme, like if you're doing like minimal order values and they're all the same review, I mean, there's probably a chance they're going to smack you on the wrist. So I don't know. That's my opinion. I don't know. I'm not an ethics counselor. It's just I think that there's ways we can do this that we don't need to be spending money on fake orders. I believe anyone can do it, including you. So good luck. All right, so my healing journey response to Tom. I want to get into copywriting. Just seems tougher since my writing skills aren't the best. So my healing journey. Listen, nobody is a good writer unless they've been writing, right? So I have a copywriting tutorial on this channel. It's my most viewed video. The number one thing I talk about there, because in the title it says how to become a copywriter making $3,000 with no experience. The main thing you need to do is practice. Practice is like the weapon a copywriter has. You need to write a lot to get good at writing. So that's what I do. Like I write every day. Even if I don't have a Fiverr order, I'm always writing, right? So if you check out that video and you check out that tutorial, I talk about things you can do to practice writing. You know, writing prompts, copywriting, pretending to have an order on Fiverr and writing a project for an imaginary company that you think might hire you. You got to practice. That's the only way you're going to get good. And, you know, courses are important too to teach you the fundamentals. And I always link to Skillshare, but practice is what's going to change the game for you. That's really what's going to get you to that point. So, practice makes perfect. Like we've been saying, people tell us this since we were kids, right? Practice a lot and you will get better. That's how it works. So Nyan TE says, thanks for sharing. My pleasure. Ayub says, thank you very much. And you are one of the best people because you do not think only of yourself, but others. Man, listen, that's a really nice comment. That's a really nice comment. Thank you so much. So TE Nyam says, usually how much time do you need for the SEO to kick in on Fiverr algorithm before you tweak again? So good question. I always, when I tweak a gig and I'm tweaking it to try to improve how it ranks, I'll let it sit there for a month or two, right? Because I don't know how long it takes for the SEO juice to really take off, right? And I also understand that there are fluctuations in statistics. So I want to give it enough time so I can get an accurate representation of how the tweaks are working. So I usually, it's a couple months. I'll let it sit before I consider tweaking it again. All right, so Thomas says, what you do not do is not worry about grammar so much. Just use lots of capitalized words and exclamation marks. What you do is not worry about grammar so much. Just use lots of capitalized words and exclamation marks. That sort of thing. Aim to sell, not write a novel. My healing journey. It's called slammer or sales grammar. So Thomas, I don't know what you really mean. I don't really know if I agree. Use a lot of capitalized words and exclamation marks. I don't know what you mean there. Like to be a copywriter, I think it's about more than that. Slammer or sales grammar. I don't know. This is new to me. So if this is some like copywriting theory that's out there, please let us know what it is in the description. Slammer. Is there like a book on slammer? I've never heard that before. But you should also be able to write with proper grammar. So when I write, I take a very conversational approach in my copywriting. I'm not focusing on writing a book or being like a literary fiction author. It doesn't need to be perfect. It needs to sound like someone's talking. I use exclamation marks, sure, to like emphasize points, but I would be careful because I've noticed. So Thomas, I need you to clarify because I get a lot of people or emails from non-English speakers where they're capitalizing every word in a sentence, and it looks silly. Like when the first letter of every word is capitalized. So if that's what you mean, I don't know if I agree. But if you're talking about capitalizing words to make them stand out in the subject line or things like that, yeah, totally. I think that's pretty effective because you're kind of drawing people's eyes to that thing. So yeah, thanks for commenting. All right, Joris Buin, I think. So, does anyone have suggestions for gigs for a photographer besides photo editing? So, that's one I've actually thought about recently because I love photography. I'm not sure what a great category would be for like the actual act of photography. Maybe stock photos. Like maybe you could do product photography where someone sends you their product and you have like a studio set up and you take like product photos with like great studio lighting and stuff. That could be pretty cool. Try it out. Let me know how it goes. So Philip says, "What is your next video?" I don't know. It's coming out on Wednesday, so check it out and you'll see that. So my healing journey says thanks to Thomas. It says thanks to me too. So you're welcome. Jedi Govna says, "How important are thumbnails for Fiverr? How do I make a thumbnail that stands out?" Good question. Thumbnails are insanely important for Fiverr. Thumbnails are essentially what you're using to get someone to click into your gig once it's appeared as an impression on their screen. So when it comes to making good thumbnails, obviously having it look somewhat professional is important. I make my own. I'm not a professional, but I've learned it from looking at other thumbnails what looks good. And then the other thing is I usually try to find ways to maximize the real estate space I have on the thumbnail. So I'll try to list out what's included in the gig on the thumbnail so people can have an idea of what my gig can do for them before they even click in. So those are my tips on thumbnails. I actually have like 3 thumbnail creation videos on the channel, one for Canva. I used to use Paint. This is how bad I was. When I first started, I'm not a graphic designer. I used to use Microsoft Paint 3D to make my thumbnails. It was a joke. But you can do it with that. So I've used Paint, I've used Canva. Check it out. You can even use like PowerPoint or Google Slides. You can get creative. Just make it look good. Thank you for the question. So Prod25 says, "I get orders in a bunch and then seems to get no orders for a while. How can I get orders more consistently?" So honestly, this is the $1,000,000 question. We talk about this all the time. Someone else asked this today, and my answer is to do things proactively to help boost the amount of orders you're getting. Send emails to prospective companies, cold call, put it on social media. Do whatever you think you can do to influence your orders. Getting more orders consistently, when I hear that, what I think is you need to do something to up the ante, right? Like Fiverr organic is going to get you what it's going to get you. But if you want to get more and more consistently, we as sellers got to find ways to do that. And I think that being proactive and reaching out to companies, buyer requests, emails, contact forms, whatever, is a good approach. All right. So I'm at 79 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up. So I'm going to take a couple more out of the chat and we're going to wrap it up for today. So Thomas, last one. So Thomas says advertorial copy always requires well-written content. So true, the slammer method means you use right as though you are closing a deal verbally. Yeah, I totally agree. But all right, so everyone, thank you for joining. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. I have another video coming out on Wednesday. I really hope this stuff was helpful for you all. So keep hustling, keep selling on Fiverr. I wish you a lot of success in 2021. And until next time, cheers.